My name is Ines. This is Director Noukowców, who will present to you the International Research Agenda's procedure today. We'll start with general remarks. We'll have 15 minutes for that, and then if there are questions, you'll be welcome to ask them using the Q&A feature, as Paula said. Then we'll go through first part of the workshop, and we'll have a short break for questions again, and the second part. We are in general quite flexible with that timeline, so if there are more questions than we anticipated, or if you wanted to ask something during the presentation, please do so. I understand we have a question.
Okay, so I have a question. The first question is, will you be paying special attention to changes, to the changes to the section of the MAB program compared to the
issues? We'll deal with it straight away. This webinar is for the future applicants, meaning we will be presenting the status of the competition for the next edition. Meaning we will inform you about the newest option, the newest version. It will be up to date. So I will leave the floor to Director Noukowców for the first 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mika. So, of course, we will mention the changes in the program. However, the changes are, you will see, optional, and the core of the program still remains unchanged. And let me start with the first slide. When talking about International Research Agenda program, we always have in mind those 6 major points of the application, of the proposals, and of the projects. First one is always the presence of a strong leader. So, meaning that every application has to refer to a strong scientific personality of an applicant. Furthermore, a strategic partner institution from abroad, meaning outside of Poland, has to be involved as partner. They have to create the international research agenda focused on an issue, of a well-defined issue, of a problem, a scientific problem, to be solved. Every proposal and every scientific unit engaged in the project has to also be governed by International Scientific Committee. International Scientific Committee is a body which will have special duties and special obligations towards the unit, towards the project, towards the agenda. Local host institution is another point which we will refer to, and we will mention the role of the local host institution. In fact, any unit which will be involved in this project has to be somewhere located, somewhere in Poland, in some infrastructure, in some lab space, that will have access to infrastructure and to equipment and so on, to students, to PhD students, so on. So the local host institution is also welcome, sometimes required and sometimes necessary for a project. We mentioned industrial connectivity because from the beginning, a project has to be focused on something applicable to economy, of the results which will be transferred to industry or to business. So 6 points mainly from the beginning to start and to think about the project. And about the goal. The goals have been well defined by national strategy for smart growth strategy. In the smart growth operational program for structural funds for Poland, was stated a measure where grants are devoted to creation of highly specialized, world-class research centers, which can apply the best international practices with regards to human resources, R&D management, and commercialization of R&D results. It means that the 3 points are the main organizational issues for the new unit, for a unit which takes part in the program. We will have special requirements in our proposal, in our application, regarding human resources, social requirements for recruitment, also special measures for R&D management and commercialization of R&D resources. In fact, those 3 points are also subject of cooperation between Polish unit and the unit from abroad, which is strategic partner in the program. About the program as introduction, it's good to say that if you think about the International Research Agenda programs and about our competition, you have to have in mind that in fact that's a competition for the first director of the research center. So that's why we require application from an individual scientist, from a person who has a vision and has a special commitment also to become a director, to lead, to become a leader of the center, of a world-class center. So that's why the candidates for this program have to compare themselves to candidates to similar research centers in the world. If you know any such a center, you will probably know who is the director of the center, what profile the director has to demonstrate during the competition. And you will also know that this is a hard job, and it is very, very important and very much responsibility for such a person to run such a center. And I mentioned before, the center is focused on an idea of a problem, something which is in the core of the research agenda. It has to be a challenge recognized globally, which will be also evaluated globally as a problem, as a scientific issue. And basically, research agenda is a plan of tackle this challenge and deal with this scientific. May I continue? So with that, something has happened with the sound. Now it's probably okay. Okay, I continue. I'm not sure at which point you haven't finished hearing me. International Scientific Committee is I mentioned before, is a body for advising and for managing recruitment, mainly evaluation of the center and evaluation of the agenda. Existing infrastructure, that's a vital point, because we do not have time to build anything and to acquire a large infrastructure during funding of the program, of the initial phase of the program. So it has to be referenced to something which exists, and really good cooperation with the owners of this infrastructure, or just contractual basis of acquiring this infrastructure. and impact on economic growth, always having in mind. Now formally, who can be applicant? Who could be the applicant of the proposal? In fact, our documentation states that there are two sorts of applicants. The first applicant is always the person who has to be the director of the center. So it has to be a scientist, a leader, an expert from the field. And the same scientist and the same director will also become a team leader during the time of the project. And the second applicant, it could be both, or either, or it could be either a scientist, active team leader, again, so a colleague from science and from being a team leader of another group in the center, or it could be a scientist who become a research coordinator. So not a leader of a group. It could be a research coordinator in terms to organize the life and work and policy and perhaps strategy of the center. I will still a scientist, still a research coordinator. It is not so much an administrator, it's more research coordinator of the center. So we have two applicants possible. And the point about the research coordinator is a new one in the new documentation. Previously, we only limited these possibilities to the team leaders. Team leaders only were allowed to apply. Now, in the application, the documentation will appear in a couple of days. We will see the research coordinator also as a second applicant possible. And perhaps a research coordinator will introduce this to the documentation because very often a foreign scientist who comes to Poland is not aware of every legal landscape, of funding landscape of science, Poland, or legal framework. And so perhaps the relationship to universities, to Polish Academy of Science, and other relationships here in place. So that's the research coordinator basically could help the first applicant in running the center by the assistance with the coordination of all research and all of the scientific relationship towards the local scientific community. Partners in the project. There is only one partner which is obligatory, which is absolutely necessary for the proposal to be correct. It's a foreign partner unit. It has to be an outstanding unit from the field. Could be also an entrepreneur, however, as a research development organization. And the role is mainly to share good practice in organization, leading scientific research, as well as the evaluation of work and research, and whatever is related to the field, whatever is related to the agenda, and to the management of science. The foreign partner unit is required to help. Local partners, it could be defined in the proposal as well. We will say in detail, like Kinga will say in detail, in which place of the proposal informations about these partners have to be placed. However, local partner, now I would only like to say that they are mainly owners of infrastructure equipment, or perhaps academic institution which run PhD schools, for instance. And again, to sum up a little bit this introduction, the idea and mission of the International Research Agenda Program Unit is that create a new culture of quality among Polish system of science, and create specific units, competitive worldwide in the specific fields, and which would have to be envisaged long term, of course. It's not only for the time being of the project. Our funding is for 3, 5, perhaps no more, 6 years, and the commitment or the vision of the center has to be longer, has to be sustainable. So let's think about the project in terms of 10 years from now, when we start preparing or thinking about the application. And the competitive advantage is also an issue, because we do not create a place to Poland similar to any others in terms of topic or in terms of science. We want to contribute. We want to contribute to the world, to the worldwide community, and introducing something new, something competitive. To also be about meeting the panel, also to convince the panel that the solution taken by the applicant are competitive, and they may count in the world and be recognized as a special place for such a specific topic. And what we also want to stress from the beginning, that this unit, this new competitive unit, has to be an environment to employ the scientists from all over the world who could come and work for the project in Poland, and the financial rules and the recruitment rules and everything in the proposal and in our documentation helps into this direction, to offer good salary, to offer really competitive environment, and to work in the world-leading center. And about the, perhaps about the framework, legal framework of that center, we have to stress that it has to be a scientific unit. And it's been regulated by the European Union, what is the organization, scientific organization. Because we want to avoid a public aid issue, especially regarding this transfer of knowledge and services. So it has to be simply a scientific unit. There is a special act on funding science in Poland, which says specifically what the unit is about. So mainly it is a unit which makes research on a continuing basis. And this is a place where resources committed to research are at least 80%. So that's probably the frame rules of the scientific unit. Some of them may think that the center is also active or will be also active in services, in providing services to business, to other research institutes, and so basically selling services. So if this is the case, the resources committed to this activity should be limited to 20%. It is simply to avoid the issue of public aid, because the program and every project is funded 100% of costs. About the legal form, again, in our legal system, our competition, documentation competition, states several obligations for the unit which implements the research agenda. And so to be ready to implement all these obligations, The unit has to comply with, it has to be flexible, has to be independent, and has to be free to adapt certain bylaws, international regulations. So for that purpose, we identify at least 2 legal forms, which are, or 3, which are suitable for such adoption of flexible regulations. Is the foundations. Foundation is based on Polish law. It's based on the statute, and the statute regulates everything: the bodies, the activities, mission of the foundation. So scientific research is perfectly one of the mission which can be operated and implemented by a foundation. Joint unit of a Polish and a foreign higher education institution. It is also an option in Polish law for higher education, when we see that a rector of a Polish university can sign a contract with a director of a foreign educational institution or scientific institution. And based on this agreement, they agree that in Poland, as a part of the university, there is a specific organizational unit which will implement rules, internal rules, according to the requirement of the international agenda. And it's possible and it could work if, of course, the rector and the director make an international agreement. And perhaps there are other legal forms possible. Limited liability companies, small companies, of course, can also have owners who decide that at some point that they started the activity will be solely focused on implementing research agenda. So it's also flexible. It's up to the owners to decide what the company does. However, with this 100% funds, we have to make sure that not more than 20% of resources are devoted to economic activities. And this slide number 11, presents new information which hasn't been published so far and was not definitely written in the first competition of our program. These provisions regulate what about the new, how the new research center can be created based on something which exists. So the centers which already exist, for instance, foundations could have been already established, some companies have been established before, perhaps the specific units of the universities also exist, but the people are already employed, researchers are employed, research is done. So if such a center would like to participate in the implementation of the international agenda, they have to change their statutes, their regulations, according to our documentation. So we have to allow for international scientific committee, they have to also provide the position of the director as a scientist, which would be always a leader group, which will also provide for this, all necessary other points from the documentation, which states, for instance, about evaluation of every scientist. So in such a case, if there is an institution you want to transform into this international research agenda unit, they have to, during the first 12 months of the project, evaluate all members. And this evaluation is to be done by international scientific committee. And when the foundation does the first midterm evaluation of the proposal, it will be 12 months. After 12 months, the evaluation, midterm evaluation organized by the foundation will verify, will check whether this midterm evaluation has been done and whether the institution is compliant with these requirements. And if there are people who have not been evaluated in a way that they could still remain in the center, they will have no more than 3 years of our project to work still in the center. After the 3 years, they have to change the place where they do research. And in the center, we fund, they could be from the second midterm evaluation, so from the third year, from the end of the third year of the project, they have to be more than half of the leaders who will be selected and who will start the project from the open competition, and only no less than 50%, no more than 50% could be the leaders from the past who are positively evaluated. And perhaps there is also an issue of other groups in the centers, other groups which come from with their own grants, perhaps the laureates of the ERC and other groups with the internationally recognized grants. So those groups also can be part of the unit. However, they have to comply with the International Research Agenda. International Scientific Committee has to see the links and the necessity or the benefit of existence of such other groups to the groups funded by us, by the project. If there are questions, of course, we'll discuss this later. And coming to the vision of the center, we can suggest that our funding will be about 35 million of Polish zloty and will be for 5 years. So, writing an application, you may have this in mind. However, there is a possibility of extending this project until the end of 2023 and to increase this fund. And there are mainly two opportunities for this extension. One possibility is after the first year of project, during the first midterm evaluation. And the second is after the third year of the project, when we also come with the experts in place and we do the second midterm evaluation. After the project, after the funding of the project, sustainability is required. The sustainability has to be projected, and also in the proposal have to be stated some rules, some solutions for the sustainability of the center in terms of remaining independent, continuing high-level research, and the same principles which we were at the beginning. So, with strategic partnership from a best place in the world, and continuing the legal options which allow for the role of the director as a scientist, allowing international scientific committee to exercise the role of the evaluator and the recruitment committee, and still implying the good practice from the field and from this particular area related to the international research agenda. There would be also an issue of projecting the funding after the period of 5 years, which will be related a little bit to business vision or business plan. How can the center be sustained? And this was introduction. So all the issues mentioned here will probably be later developed, and will certainly be later developed by Kinga during the presentation. And basically, you can think about that and ask the questions later. Or we don't have questions right now, so we will slowly go to the first part of the application, and in detail. Now Kinga will present all the parts of this first part of application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you know, as you probably know, this application is submitted in 3 parts. We'll go through all attachments and all information that you need to provide to us during this application process. First of all, what I want to say is that all requirements are in the competition documentation. This is quite a formal process because we fund this project with structural funds, and so all competition documentation requirements have to be met. I'll start, so whatever I say is taken probably from the documentation of competition, or it will be there when we publish the new one. First of all, very general remarks, technical remarks. For some of the attachments, we have forms, we have page limitations, we have time limitations and language requirements. Please make sure that you conform to that. If we say we need up to 5 pages, that means that during formal evaluation of your application, we will check whether it is no more than 5, and if it is more than 5 pages, we will simply delete the 6th and further pages. So please make sure that you keep those limitations, time limitations, page limitations, language requirements as well. This was general, and now to the subsequent attachments. First, you submit documents about the applicant or applicants. As the Director Peter said, we can have 1 or 2 applicants, and for each of them, you are requested to submit very basic documents that you probably have on your laptops anyway. So your CV, no more than 10 key research or implementation achievements from the last 10 years. And by achievements, we mean either a single publication or a description of implementation or a description of some kind of discovery or scientific discovery. In general, it could be anything that you consider your achievement, scientific or implementation achievement. It has to be acquired within the last 10 years, and it has to be no more than 10 of them. Further on, description of unique features of the applicant's achievement. So we want to know how your achievements, scientific or implementation achievements, contributed to the world science. In general, we want to see that your research is breakthrough indeed. We also ask for the list of key projects for which you received funding, again within the last 10 years, and preferably with the amounts that you received and the granting agency. List of key lectures and conference speeches to which you were invited, again within the last 10 years. Description of your research and management experience. This description of research to industry and industry cooperation, and if you decide to apply as 2 applicants and the second applicant will decide that he or she wants to take on the role of research coordinator, we also request that this person submits a cover letter describing his or her role in the new unit, RP unit. For some of this information, we have forms, as I said, and this is an example of a form. It is very simple. It's a Word file that you simply fill in. Please make sure that you do not change the names of the columns. Do not change the titles of the sections. Please simply just fill in that form. There are also forms for conference presentations, everything that could be structured. We just try to make it simpler for you and provide a form that hopefully helps you submit formally correct application. Another document that we request at this first stage of application is an overview of the international research agenda. as you have already heard, it has to deal with a research challenge, a topic, problem, and there has to be a unique approach to that challenge. We want to see that you base your application for a new center of excellence on something that would be interesting to the scientists in the world at large, and that you actually could be successful in the sense that you will not be copying centers that already exist and operate with much larger budgets than we can provide. There has to be also in that overview a justification for the need of actually a new administrative structure. Why would you want to set up a new institution, or why would you need a new institution? Why couldn't you simply do your research having colleagues, all with each of them with a large grant? Do you really need a new structure, or is it just a large grant that you need? Now we have also a form for that. Basically, just needs to have your title and the scientific challenge clearly stated, and then the approach to that challenge. We ask that you provide us with a description of economic and socioeconomic impact of your project and the results of your project. In general, this action, the whole program, has to help the economic growth of Poland. So there has to be some indication that your project will comply with that and improve the economic growth situation in the country. There, as you know, one of the key features is the strategic partner unit from abroad. And here, what we request at this stage of the application is the letter of intent. This letter of intent is in detail described in the documentation of competition, but in general, it has to say what institution is issuing that letter. It has to say what the role of that institution will be in the new project, in your new institution, how it will contribute to the development of your institution. And the very important thing is that the letter should be signed by a person who can represent that foreign institution. That strategic partner institution will in the future have to close an agreement with your new institution. So already at this stage, we want to make sure that the person issuing the letter is a person who can commit the institution to that new project, an agreement that the person can make binding decisions for the institution. So what we ask is a signature from a chancellor or director of an institute, not a lab leader. The cooperation in this program is obviously partly in research and doing science together, but this is, I would say, a byproduct of the cooperation. The foremost, this is institutional cooperation. It is taking best practices from your partner unit, from your partner from abroad. So we want two institutions eventually to close an agreement, and so we need someone who can represent the institution to sign the letter of intent. And we will be verifying this. It is very important to us because after this first stage of application, we just want to see whether the project can be at all implemented or not. There is a question, I understand.
Okay, so how specific this letter of intent should be? In particular, what do you mean by a description? How detailed a description do you require?
We do not have any page limit or any formal requirements. We just want to see what that partner institution will bring into the project. How detailed, I understand it doesn't have to have exact dates. It has to, however, say whether the partner institution will, for example, contribute to the PhD courses for students, or whatever other action you decide to take from, or policy you decide to take from that strategic partner institution. It is not an agreement, it is a letter of intent. We will expect a text, proposed text of the agreement between the units at the third stage of application. Another question.
Okay, so can an application include more than one strategic partner? For example, 2 or more companies, or 1 company and 1 academic partner?
Okay, so the formal requirement at this stage is the strategic partner institution from abroad. I will go on to the other partners. You can have more than 1, but in general, you have to say how the cooperation between these institutions will be organized. So we suggest that you consider how you will structure this cooperation, what you will actually take from the partners. It has to be a real partnership, and then you will have to close agreements with those institutions. So you may cooperate with more than 1, but the 1 is a formal requirement, and it has to be, and the involvement of the institution is also evaluated at this stage and then at the later stage. So we would suggest a strong collaboration with 1 partner rather than a few letters of intent that do not tell much about the cooperation. A brief description of our implementing unit structure. We ask you to tell us what legal form you have selected. As you heard in the first part of that webinar, there are 3 basic legal forms that we find in line with the documentation of competition. If you come up with something else and our legal company says it is okay and in line, we will be happy to accept that. But in general, we did a thorough legal evaluation of the situation in Poland, and we think the research foundation, a joint unit, and a company are the basic legal forms that you could take on. We want to see how that our unit will cooperate with the strategic partner. We want to see in this 2 pages document how the research groups will be structured, how many do you plan, you may choose between 5 and 7, how they will interact with each other. Anything else that you may add at this point that you already know and may add will be beneficial. And a description of the site, the place where actually the unit will be placed. We want to know already at this stage your estimation of how much laboratory space you will need and how much you will have available. What kind of equipment is available, and you've got that agreed with some, and whether you have this agreed with some local partner institution. This is not 100% binding document in the sense, obviously at this stage you will not know exactly how many square meters will be available. It could be more, it could be less at the end, but it has to be quite credible and it has to fit your research plans. There is a form for this laboratory space. We ask for square meters and we ask for type of equipment. This will be negotiated at the 3rd stage of the evaluation, and it could be changed, but we want to see that you have thought it out and that you have a local institution that will provide the lab space and the equipment. Other partners, coming back to the question that was posted, you may collaborate with as many institutions and companies as you want. And probably it's beneficial for your new institution to cooperate with many partners. But what we evaluate and what we want to see in the application is up to 2 letters from economic partners, from companies, and up to 2 letters from scientific partner institutions. This limits allow us to compare all applications. We want to just see the same set of documents for each application. The letters are optional. So you may, if you have some cooperation already or you have planned to have an economic partner and you can get a letter of intent from them, it could help your application, but this is formally, this is not required. And now we should already go to the second part of the application. And I will ask Helge just to come back here and talk about that. I think we are ahead of time.
Okay, thank you, Livia. Going to the second part of application, I would perhaps say that the intention was that the applications in three parts. The first part should be relatively easy and technical and potentially, I think quite easy. And so it requires the idea, it requires the vision and some initial contacts. In the second, this first part of application is evaluated in the foundation by international panel of experts, which will see all the applications. So there are at least 10 experts from all over the world who are experienced in such places as institutes and directors of institutes and experience with this exercise. So they will evaluate all the proposals and they will choose the best for the second part. And the second part of the application is submitted upon the invitation. And it is in fact 2 documents. The second part of application is the full international research agenda and a description of the competence of the foreign part. Full international research agenda is 15 pages document stating the topics, again, the main issue of the agenda, and the methods and the way the agenda will be solved or will be operated by the means of research groups. And it could be solving this problem through the perhaps interdisciplinary groups or 5. The requirement is 5 to 7. 5 to 7 groups have to be stated in this description. And the only point is just to refer a little bit and to be consistent with the first part of application that the topic were introduced, and perhaps the major competitive advantage was also outlined in the first part of application. Here is a more place, 15 pages, to develop these points from the first part of applications. And this international research agenda and this second document, which is a description of the competence of the foreign partner unit, will be evaluated by external reviewers, which will evaluate only your proposal. They will not see other proposals, so they will be from field. So you can write these documents as to the experts from field. The first part of the application, to write it more for the interdisciplinary experts. However, this second part of the application is for your field, for your the people you think are experts from the field. We also provide a form for this international research agenda description, 15 pages description. This form is only to underline the major points which we have to develop in this description. Description of the competence of the foreign partner unit. This is now larger document. And the first part of application, we've got the letter signed by an official from the partner unit. And this letter, of course, confirmed that the unit is aware of the responsibility. In this place, there is more about the interaction of this unit. It's about the achievements, about the institutional culture. It's very important because that's what we want to apply to this new place, Poland. This institutional culture, this culture of management, of recruitment, of quality, And all good practice of organization and whatever is related to the organization of the work of the groups. That is the maximum 20 pages document which presents the partner. And we do not have any form for that, just description. Any institution probably have such description of the achievements and the major advantage, the major assets. It would be, yes. It is mainly the second part of the application, again, it's only 2 documents. However, it is evaluated by the experts from the field. And based on this, the judgment of the experts from the field, that will be invitation for submission of the third part of the application. Perhaps Kinga will say on the third part of the application. I've got a question.
Okay, so in the full documentation of the International Research Agenda, this part, description of strategic partners, should be maximum 15 pages or 20 pages.
Okay, so we have 2 documents in this second part application. The first document is a full International Research Agenda. It's maximum 15 pages. So, according to this form. And the second document is a description of the competence of the foreign partner unit. It's maximum 20 pages, this document. So we have 2 documents. So we could continue. You can present the third part. Okay, in our schedule, 11 o'clock was the time for break. So definitely we need this time just for technical reasons and for to relax. And however, do we have a question? Still ready to answer questions.
So how many candidates will be considered after, I guess, the down selection for the third part?
Yes. So initially, in the first part of the applications, as I said, all applications are evaluated. And from those broad number of applications, at least 50% goes to the second part of the competition. And from the second part, the best evaluated proposals are invited for the third part of the applications. How many? It's difficult to predict because we've only got now the second round of the competition. We could say that almost all, in fact, all proposals evaluated highly by the reviewers are invited for the third part of the application. So there is no way that we will have good proposals which will not be invited for the third part of the application. Okay, thank you. So let's have 15 minutes now. Break.